For the sports update, time now for business. The monetary policy of the Bank of Ghana has maintained the policy rate at 13.5%. We'll be hearing from the governor of the central bank and also be talking fuel pricing coming up on Talking Business. Ms. Darrell Kwao. Talking Business is live across our social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. So we begin with the big one. The Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee has been meeting in recent days and has now decided to maintain the policy rate at 13.5%, is a rate at which the central bank lends to commercial banks. Now, you know the president has been pushing for a reduction in interest rates, and so based on these considerations and threats to inflation rate as well as the growth of the economy, the MPC decided to maintain the policy rate at 13.5%. There is more in this report.
Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, in announcing the new policy rate of 13.5%, noted that there are still some other sectors in the economy that are yet to pick up, hence the decision to keep the rate unchanged. On issues about reduction in interest rates in the country, the governor noted that a lot more still needs to be done on the fiscal side to drive down the cost of lending in the country.
You would see that the monetary policy rate itself is at 13.5%. So we have done our part in signaling the direction of interest rates. Unfortunately, that transmission to the longer dated instruments will depend on the stance of fiscal policy. And until we see effective fiscal consolidation, you would continue to see this stiffness in the longer dated end of the curve. And it buttresses the importance of further fiscal consolidation to reduce the demand for funds to finance the budget.
The governor of the Bank of Ghana was optimistic that inflation rate would end the year still within the projected target, assuring that there is no need for us to panic. On the Ghana City, Dr. Ernest Addison said they are taking the required measures to deal with the recent pressures on the local currency.
This is really the decision that we took because we thought that the risk from both ends were balanced, right? We're looking at the risk of higher inflation and the risk of a lower growth, and on the basis of that,
And that was the governor of the central bank, Dr. Ernest Addison. Let's talk about our debt situation, because we're hearing that our total debt now stands at 335.9 billion cedis. That's according to latest data from the Bank of Ghana. And this is largely due to a surge in domestic debts by 3.1 billion cedis between June and July. However, there is a slowdown in the rate of government borrowing. We have been getting reaction from the man you're seeing in your shots, Dr. Williams Pepa, Head of Finance at the Valley View University.
Borrowing from domestic is around 24.5 billion, which is equal to the item 1 item. The moment government decides to admit and pay labor a higher wage based on the situation what is happening in the country, government might have to go and borrow more money to be able to meet this request.
Well, you have called on government to stay within its budget. It's quite clear from your perspective that government isn't staying within its budget. How does government, maintain its spending discipline?
The government must look at some of the expenditure items, recurrent expenditure items, which they can do away with or maybe postpone. And once they're able to do that, we'll be able to stay within the budget. The critical factor is that government wants to do projects like the project 111. Where government is going to get the money from is a little bit of challenge, which means that probably monies that we are supposed to use for other expenditure items will have to be channeled. it's going to have a major impact.
And so you heard Dr. Williams report saying that government must try as hard as it can to stay within budget. Now let's turn to fuel issues, because the National Petroleum Authority says it's going to monitor the activities of OMCs to ensure that cartels do not exploit consumers. Now, here is more in this report filed by my colleague Ebenezer Sabute.
The engagement with the stakeholders is part of the input mechanisms by the NPA towards the review of the deregulation policy, as well as the pricing formula. The issue of cartels in the petroleum sector has been one of the major concerns raised by some civil society organizations. According to the head of pricing, Abbas Tassante, the NPA is doing everything possible to protect consumers, although there are no facts indicating any form of cartel in the industry.
If there was a cartel, the margins would have been very stable and flat. But you can tell that the margins of the OMCs have been dropping. They move. They are not stable. The cartel would want to set a margin to more or less benefit themselves. But where we have margins that go down, up, down, sometimes going so low, that you see that it is a reflection of market forces at play. It is not a cartel, a market that has a cartel. But as a regulator, we want to assure you again that we are not going to allow cartels to be formed. Our act mandates that we make sure no cartels are formed, whether be it in pricing or be in supply of petroleum products. So we want to assure the consumer that the cartel does not exist, and we are going to make sure that one doesn't exist in the industry.
All inputs from the engagement will be presented to the economic management team before a final decision is made. The chief executive of the NPA, Mustafa Abdul Hamid, believes that this is a great opportunity for the country to improve upon the policy initiatives of the government in the petroleum downstream sector.
I want to try today to harmonize what we say with what you hear and hopefully bring clarity to the matter, and then to hear you also, and then I'm sure that going forward we can all have a common position on this whole business of petroleum pricing deregulation, so that ultimately
Dr. Mustafa Hamid, CEO of the National Petroleum Authority. There's more business news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Benjamin is up next with Beyond the Headlines. Do stay.